Welcome to Bedtime Stories. The Hermit's Mouse. Once upon a time in the deep forest that surrounded the holy city, there lived a hermit who had extraordinary powers. People knew the hermit far and wide for his plentiful power, for he could perform such feats as no one had ever seen before. Still, he lived all alone deep in the forest because most of all, he loved his solitude. Many pilgrims braved the forest to visit this great man and to bow before him, to praise his skill and to learn from him. They brought along offerings of fruit and flowers, spices and silks. But the hermit cared nothing for such gifts. He loved only nature, and so day in and day out, he sat outside his hut and watched the world around him and admired the nature. One day as he sat outside his hut beneath the huge banyan tree, a crow flew overhead, and the hermit spied in its beak a tiny, shivering creature. It was a baby mouse. Suddenly the crow opened its beak, and the mouse dropped to the ground. The hermit was filled with compassion, and he ran to the little mouse. He scooped it into his hands and carried it into his hut. There he nursed it back to health, using his magical powers. From that day on the mouse became like a child to him. It was his constant companion. Word spread of the love the hermit felt for his little mouse. From that day on, everyone who visited the hermit marveled at the friendship that had grown between the hermit and the mouse. They all called him the Hermit's Mouse. One day some students were visiting the hermit when they noticed a cat chasing the hermit's mouse. The hermit's mouse raced as fast as his little feet would carry him to his protector. When the hermit saw the cat and saw how his little mouse shivered, he summoned his magical powers. "You shall be afraid no more," he said, and right there, before the student's eyes, he changed the trembling and shivering mouse into an enormous and ferocious cat. The students laughed at the sight. "Look, it is a cat that was a mouse." From that moment on, the hermit mouse had become a cat moved in safety among the great cats of the forest. But when students visited, they shook their heads at the haughty cat. With a snide laugh they said, "Ah, look at the glorified mouse cat." And the cat that had been a mouse felt aggravated and embarrassed. He raised his head high, trying to appear powerful. The trouble was not over for the mouse cat, for one day the same students were visiting when they saw a pack of wild dogs chasing the mouse cat. Naturally the mouse cat sped toward his protector. When the hermit saw the fear in his beloved's eyes, he cried, "I cannot save you from vicious dogs, and so from this day on you shall be a wild dog." Once again, to the students' amazement, the mouse cat was turned into a wild dog. And the mouse dog then began to play in the forest with the other wild dogs, proud of its strength. Yet when visitors arrived, they laughed at the mouse dog and said, "Look at the glorified dog that was a cat that was a mouse." Then one day the students were visiting the hermit when the mouse dog again raced toward his protector's hut, terrified and scared, for this time he was being chased by a fierce, growling tiger. The hermit had no choice but to change the mouse dog into a roaring tiger. The students, seeing this miraculous transformation, stared in wonder. Yet, when the tiger stood before them, they began to laugh. "Look at the hermit's tiger," they snickered. "He is only a glorified mouse. If the hermit won't be there, then he would be nothing but just a mild, helpless little creature." The mouse tiger now growled ferociously and began to patrol the hermit's hut. But whenever visitors arrived and saw that growling mouse tiger, they only laughed. "Who fears the tiger?" they said. "He's only a glorified hermit's mouse that would be nothing if it weren't for the hermit's powers." After a while the mouse tiger grew tired of hearing these insults and taunts, and he then understood, and realized that the only thing that would stop these taunts about his mousiness would be to kill the one who had transformed him, which is the hermit. The mouse tiger just wanted to prove his powers and dependence. But naturally, the moment the mouse tiger had this thoughts of killing, the hermit knew all about his plans and his gesture of brutal betrayal. His heart was broken by this brutal betrayal, so he approached the mouse tiger and looked into his eyes and said, "From now you will be turned back into a mouse." And so it was that the mouse tiger became a mouse once again, and this time he wasn't the hermit's mouse, he was just an ordinary mouse with no protection and shelter, but just helter. If you like the story, please do like, share and subscribe. Thank you for listening. Good night.